So today I'm going to show you seeding stitch and some different variations of it. Hi everybody, I'm Sarah. This is my channel, Sarah Homfray Embroidery, and we are making a little stitch sampler. So the idea of these videos is you can stitch along with me if you want to make a whole sampler and build up your knowledge of different stitches and have a little practice at some stitches, you can do that. Or if you just want to jump in and out of these videos and just pick a stitch that you're interested in and you want to learn, you can do that also. So we're going to do a different video on each stitch, and I've already done one video. So if you want to know how I set up my stitch sampler, how I prepared the fabric and the first stitch, which is running stitch, you can check that video out up in the corner here, and there'll be a whole playlist on this stitch sampler as well, so you can jump onto the playlist and pick whichever video you would like to watch. And I'm going to work it in a slow stitching kind of style. I just love slow stitching. It's really good just to calm you down and just to bring you down and have a little bit of mindful time to yourself. But if you're not keen on slow stitching, you don't want to do it that way, that's absolutely fine. I've got another version here as well. This is on a ring frame, so you can do it on stretcher bars or a ring frame. And you can frame up traditionally, and you can work it on a ring frame and practice your stitches on this. So it really is do it whichever way you would like and whichever way you would enjoy learning these stitches. So a few questions did come up from that first video, and I will try and tackle those as I go along, but I want to show you what I did in the last one because I didn't show you it finished. So this is the running stitch. So this is my little slow stitch sampler. I've got a couple of layers of fabric and I've just pieced some other pieces on top of it as well. I've put a few extra on as well since the first video, and I'm just going to work on top of these and just think it makes a nice little design really, and hopefully at the end of it I'll have a big nice long sampler that looks beautiful as well. And I'm going to wrap it around a reel, or you can wrap it around a reel. I'm not sure if I will do with this one or not. So these are cotton reels. We've got some big reels here from Textile Industry, sort of bobbin reels. Get these on eBay. People have been asking where to get those from. Or you can just fold it up and put a little bow around it, which is quite a nice way to present it as well. So you can present it whichever way you want to. So that's why I've got it on a long strip. And we just did this running stitch in the first video. So I've just gone all the way around these pieces that I've applied on. And just done a very simple running stitch just to get warmed up and just to have a little practice at this stitch all the way along here as well. It's a super nice stitch to start with. It's so versatile, you can use it in so many things, and especially if you like slow stitching, you want to do more slow stitching, this is a really good one. And it's just to practice threading your needle and what the fabric and the thread feels like, and just sort of get warmed up if you like. So that's a really great one. And I'm going to show you the same stitch on the ring frame sampler. So a couple of pieces here, exactly the same way, gone around the edge with it, but I just want to show you this little slow stitch spiral, a little running stitch spiral. So exactly the same stitch, but I've just gone round in a circle. I've started in the middle, round and round and round. This is variegated thread, so it changed colour, but I'm not going to show you that in this series of videos because I have a whole video on slow stitch spirals. I've already done that one, so do go and check that out if you would like to do these. They're really lovely to do and very tactile as well. I'll put that one up here as well if you want to go and check that and see how to do these running stitch spirals. So we're going to have a look at some seeding stitch. So it's very similar to running stitch. So it is basically one of these stitches on its own, and rather than doing it in a row, we're going to scatter them about a bit. So if you imagine a handful of birdseed and you scattered the birdseed, and they would all sort of lie quite higgledy-piggledy on the floor. So that's the kind of effect that we're going for. And I'm going to use a different thread. So for the running stitch I used a stranded cotton. I used 2 strands of that to do this running stitch, but I just thought we'll try a few different threads and I can show you what those are like. I've got loads of videos on different threads, so check those out if you want to know more about embroidery threads. But this is a cotton perlé, so this doesn't strand, it doesn't separate out, it is a twisted cotton thread, and we're just going to use it as it is. This is a number 8. You can get finer ones and more thicker ones as well, and then a good thread length. Not sure if I think I mentioned this last time, but fingertip to the inside, falling on the floor, inside of your elbow, that long, not this elbow. This will make a difference to your stitching, and I know people think, oh, that's not very long and I've got to keep rethreading my needle, but it will be worth it, I promise you. And I'm going to use a chenille number 24 for this number 8 perlé. It's got a nice big eye on it, I'm not fighting that. We've got a really good video on how to thread up a needle if you're struggling with that. If you can't thread needles, you're just going to get really cross with the rest of it. So just make sure you've got that sorted first before you start your stitching. So this is a little knot that I like, so it goes over my finger, needle goes on top of it in a little cross, hold them in my thumb and my finger, go around twice, pull that thread back down, and then pull that needle through. That makes a really nice fine little knot. Now on other kinds of stitching that I do, kinds of embroidery, I use the waist knot method. So we put a knot on the top, we do 2 small stitches, then we cut the knot off. I'm going to leave the knot on this slow because it's slow stitching. We're going to bury the knot inside the layers of the fabric so it won't come undone. So you might see me use a different method on other kinds. And the other thing I do want to mention in this, if you're left-handed, I'm going to endeavour to do these stitches when relevant for left-handers as well. Sometimes it's not relevant and it won't be with the seeding stitch, but sometimes you need to swap over, so I will try and remember to do it both ways so that you know how to do it for you. And that way's not exactly the same. You can do it that way on your finger and you can wrap it around the other way, so just reverse what I'm doing. So slow stitching is normally done in your hand, but if you're doing it in a ring frame and you want to do a more traditional embroidery that way, I am going to show you how to do that, because I like to do this in my hand, but it makes filming it a little bit harder. I've got to try and keep it under the camera, so what I'm going to do is put it in a little ring frame just to make sure you can see what I'm doing. So I've just got a little 4-inch one here. I'm just going to trap it in there. I'm not going to pull it super tight because it's not really about that, but I'm just going to put it in there to make it easier for me to film, basically. So I've got my fabric in my frame. Just pick an area of it that you want to do this stitch on. It doesn't matter where, you can jump in the middle if you want to. I thought it'd be quite nice to start at the end and kind of have a progression, but you start wherever you like. If you've got a nice bit of fabric on there and you think that looks nice, I shall start there. Right, so I've got my knot in my end, and I'm just going to take the needle underneath that fabric and come up there, and that knot will disappear. I could come up from the back, but the knot's on the back and it's a bit vulnerable while it's sitting on the back. I'll cut that little tail off later. So it's buried between the fabric, so it shouldn't come undone. So we're going to do a single seeding stitch first. So just single stitches. Now we're not doing it in a line like the running stitch. I'm just going to jump about a bit and just place a single stitch. Try and do them the same length if you can. Doesn't matter if they're not the same length. Somebody has asked that as well. How do I make my stitches neater? They're not very neat. Practice. Practice, practice, practice. That's the only thing that's going to make them neat. So don't worry too much about that at this stage. Just learn about threading your needles, learn about the threads, learn how it feels going through the fabric. The rest will come, I promise you. Just do at the moment. Just stitch if you're beginning. If you're new to embroidery, just put some stitches in. You will not learn unless you stitch. So don't worry about how neat it is. That will come. Just do some stitches. So there's my single stitches, scattering them around, doing them in a different direction. Roughly the sort of same distance apart, but it doesn't have to be. If you threw them on the ground for the birds, they wouldn't all land nice and evenly with even space between them, so don't worry about that. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see that a bit closer. So just straight up, needle straight back down. Don't do any strange angles like that because that'll do something to the position of the stitch. So straight up, straight back down, straight up, straight back down. Nice even tension. If you're doing this in your hand and not in a frame, that's good for your tension because it just means you can't pull it too tight, because if you do, it will screw up. So doing it in the hand is good for your stitch tension. So nice and even tension throughout. You should be nice and relaxed and enjoying this. It shouldn't be stressful. Okay, so single seeding stitch. So the next one I want to do is to show you a double seeding stitch. It'll come as no surprise to you that double is 2 stitches, but we're going to do them next to each other, sort of 2 parallel stitches, and otherwise exactly the same. I'm going to change the direction of them Same length for each stitch. Try and do the same spacing if you can. Again, don't worry if it's not, it will come with practice. Absolutely promise you. No one is born being able to do it. Practice, practice. Just scattering them around. And this stitch is really nice if you want to fill something in, but you don't want to make it solid. You don't want solid stitching there. Maybe you just want a little bit of an accent in the background, or a pattern in the background, or want a bit of shading. Or if you're doing slow stitching, it's good for holding a piece of fabric down if you don't want to do the running stitch around it. Just add a bit of interest to your embroidery. So just stop that one there. And then I'm going to show you a few more things that you can do with this stitch. So these are some that I have done on my ring frame sampler here. So here's the single ones and the double ones that we've looked at, but you can do very simple variations of this just by changing the shape of it. So I'm still doing those little single straight stitches, those short straight stitches, but now it's how you put them together. So here's some little triangles. So 1, 2, 3 stitches. I've scattered them around, I've changed the angle that they're at. I've done these little zigzag ones. These are quite good fun. Not worried about them all being the same. But again, 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, spread them out, different directions. You can do that in a little U shape, 1, 2, 3. You could do squares, it doesn't have to be 3 stitches, you go 1, 2, 3, 4 if you want to. But just to show you what you can do with it, because once you learn a few, then you can do whatever you want. You can invent your own if you like. But the idea of the seeding is it's a small stitch, a single stitch that you can stitch on its own, and it's sort of scattered around and filling a space in. And then I've just got these little V ones here as well. So I'm just going to show you a few of them because there's just one or two things that you need to know about doing those. So let's do the triangles. So I'm kind of doing the same length. I've just moved to a different part of my sampler now. Do these on a different bit. So you'll notice what I've done here is I've done my first stitch and then I haven't come up at the end of the first one. I've come out in the space. So this will be the point of the triangle if you like. It's always better if a hole is sharing a thread. So if the thread is going down the same hole more than once, to go down into that hole rather than up out of it. I'll just in fact show you what happens if I come up. I come up, I can split that thread and I can sort of push it in the wrong kind of direction and it just distorts the thread somewhat. So if I come up away from it and then take my needle back down towards that hole, so I've got much more accuracy that way. Do that again, and then obviously this one you can't, so if I pull on that one tightly and I come back up at the end of that one, I should be able to come through the hole really much more easily. So it's a case with any kind of embroidery really. If you want to put the thread down the same hole more than once, then try and go down into that hole if you can. It's not always possible, as in this third stitch, but that's the first stitch. Second stitch, come up on the point, go down into that hole there. Much neater if you do that, and then you can come up at the end of either one of these and then just go across. So that's my little triangles. Just do one more, just jump around. Try not to jump all the way over here because then you get a big long thread on the back, and I will show you the back in a second. Try and keep those stitches close together so you don't get those long threads. If you get a long thread on the back and it breaks, it can come out in the front as well. So that's just good working practices. Keep your stitches close together. And I'll just do that one there like so. So that's a little triangle seeding stitch. So let's do the little zigzags. So 1, up away, down into the hole, 2, and you can do your third stitch in the same way, up away from the hole, down into the hole. So that's a little Z. Let's do a couple of those. You'll notice I'm not kind of doing a pattern. I'm working from a pattern. I'm not drawing them on first or tracing anything. I'm just freestyling it. I think, as I mentioned earlier, don't worry about the accuracy at the minute. Just do some stitching, learn the stitch, get the stitches in, and then the rest will come. It's much more fun if you're just too busy worrying about how long your stitches are and whether they're all the same. Takes the fun out of it, really. So down into that hole, down into that hole. Okay, so the little U shapes, oops, are the same. So you can go 1, 2, and then again you can do that with this one. You come up away from that stitch and down into the hole. There's your little U shape and your little V shape. It's dead easy because that's only 2 stitches. So 1, down towards that hole, 2. Let's do one more of those. We'll go the other way up. So I want to try and scatter them. If it's seed stitch, so you scatter the seeds. You can make it a little bit narrower if you want to. You can change this and do it however you want to. And I've seen this stitched and really super small and really close together. They would use it in very traditional black work to as a filling stitch. So it looks sort of like it's a little bit like lace, really. So it looks sort of like it's got a colour behind it, but it isn't. It's just lots of little tiny seeding stitches in the area, so you can fill it in, you can shade with it, you can change your colours, you can use the variegated thread. It's a variegated perlé there, so the colours will change as you go through it. So much you can do with it, but really super simple stitch, and just a couple of variations just to change it up a bit. So if you want to make this into a scroll and put it on a reel, I will show you how to do that. Somebody's asked me already, how do you fix it to the reel? We'll do that much later down the line. You don't want to be stitching on it while it's attached to it. Stitch it in your hand and then just roll it around the reel while you store it, and then I will show you how to attach it to the reel later. So do go and check out this video up here. So this is the first one in the series, shows you how I set it up and shows the running stitch, and there will be lots more of these videos with lots of different stitches on as well, so do check out the playlist for that. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, always appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.